So, anyway, chat, let's get to it. We're gonna get a double dose of Nicked. Alright? We're getting a double dose of this. So, we're gonna start off with the kamikaze pigeon guided bombs. And I think you guys and the people in my YouTube channel have asked me watch the video about the pigeons. We're gonna watch the video about the pigeons. So let's check it out.
Today we're talking about that time that America weaponized a bunch of pigeons by teaching them how to drive bombs. Yeah, I'm trying to tell you that America actually made pigeon kamikazes. Sorry. Makazes, if you will. Not only that, but these pigeon bombs almost made it so nuclear weapons were never developed, and they may or may not be the inspiration for the Angry Birds video game. I don't know. Either way, this is gonna get weird, so buckle up. Once upon a time during World War II, pretty much every country involved was trying to come up with new super weapons that would end the war. For America, that super weapon was always gonna be a bomb. The only question was what flavor. There were a couple different competing ideas at the time. Option 1, the super spicy flavor. Create a bomb that was so big and powerful on impact that you simply couldn't miss. Or the this porridge is just right option. Create a guided missile that was more accurate than anything the world had ever seen at this point. And as I'm sure you can guess, option A, the super spicy flavor, eventually won, that being the Manhattan Project and nuclear weapons. However, the world's first GPS bomb gave it a run for its money. GPS obviously standing for Guided Pigeon System. Now this was originally known as Project Pigeon, and it was invented and run by Harvard psychology professor B.F. Skinner. Did you guys hear that? That was...
Wait, I know that name. And no, I'm not thinking about The Simpsons. I know that name. And I can't place where I've heard it from. Damn. Alright. It's gonna bug me, but I can't remember.
You guys hear that? That was every psychology major on the planet sighing and muttering under their breath, of course it was. If you don't know, B.F. Skinner is one of, if not the most famous psychologist of all time. He did all kinds of crazy shit, but he's most well known for his work in conditioning and positive reinforcement. Like, this guy's the reason that you give a dog a treat when they do something good. He came up with that. And somewhere along the way in that research...
Oh, the Pavlov? Wait. So he piggybacked off of Pavlov. With that specific research, he piggybacked off the results of Pavlov and refined it, I suppose. Okay.
He figured out that he could train pigeons to peck at a particular shape. So he did the next logical thing. He took that information to the DoD and said that he can make a missile that was guided by pigeons. Duh. I mean, gee, I wonder which country this guy's from. I'm 99% sure, but let's just go ahead and check. Yeah, America. See, I knew it. Anyways, the DoD didn't really know what to make of it, because on one hand, it's a little ridiculous to have a bomb piloted by a fucking pigeon. But on the other hand, this is the biggest unhealthcare system in the world, and we're not about to miss out on the opportunity to murk a bad guy with a fucking pigeon. So they gave him a modest $24,000 and told him to go continue his research. Now,
wait. Yeah, okay, I was gonna say, that like, 24,000 back then, but he's gonna do the conversion. And, Pepper Short, it's been a while since I looked at since I heard anything about Pavlov. I don't think I remember anything about the children tests.
Fucking pigeon. So they gave him a modest $24,000 and told him to go continue his
Hi, Johnny.
research. Now, 24 grand back then is roughly like $500,000 today. Granted,
Jesus.
I don't know what the overhead is on pigeons, but that sounds like enough money. So he goes back to Harvard and he develops a nose cone for a bomb. That nose cone has 3 windows on it, and each window is covered with a conductive film. The pigeon is then mounted behind the windows, and it has an electrode mounted to its beak. Then when the pigeon sees the target that it's been trained to peck at, it pecks, which causes the electrode to touch the conductive film, which in turn sends an electrical signal to the bomb telling it when to adjust course. And it was like shockingly effective. The only problem was every once in a while the pigeon could get confused by shadows. So how do you compensate for one pigeon potentially being a dumbass? That's easy. You add more pigeons and take an average. They started putting 3 pigeons in every bomb, and then they would take the pecks of all 3 pigeons into consideration. That way if one pigeon was a dumbass, his vote would be overruled by the other 2 pigeons.
Friend or foe? Foe!
No!
Okay, Predator, have a good night. Thanks for coming by.
Was a dumbass, his vote would be overruled by the other 2 pigeons.
Friend or foe?
Foe.
Foe. No, you idiots. It's a pigeon.
I'm trying to tell you that America's about to hold an election inside this bomb with pigeon delegates to decide which bad guy we're gonna murk. Fucking democracy. Democracy's gonna happen. This fixed the problem and the bombs were almost 100% effective at hitting their desired target. Despite that, the DoD decided they were still gonna go with nuclear weapons because they were worried that nobody would take us serious if we were using pigeons. I could not disagree more. Do you know how fucking scary it would be knowing that you could get murked by a goddamn pigeon? I mean, nobody wants to be in the afterlife looking at the kill cam seeing that you got murked by a bunch of birds. This might actually be where the phrase shitting on your enemies came from. Not only that, but this is like 1943, 1944. Do you know how much disrespect that is? Like, do you know how many Japanese pilots were in the afterlife looking at this like there's no fucking way? Are you kidding me? We could have been using pigeons this whole time. I mean, you think the pigeons are gonna take too long to train. Imagine using people. Anyways, the project eventually got shelved, World War II ended, and then like 15 years later, they actually brought the project back under the name Project Orkin, which stood for Organic Control. And again, it proved to be extremely effective. And just as they were about to start using it, the pigeons unionized.
Oh, honestly? Hoseki? Probably not. Because, like, when it comes to, like, all they needed to do to train them was to peck at a specific object. Which, yes, there'd be some work involved. But I don't think it would be the massive pain that you think it is. Like, because you're not actually needing to direct them to fly. All you need to train them to do is recognize this shape and peck at it. That's it. So for a pigeon, that's probably not overly hard to train them to do. It's a very simple task. It's going to take lots of repetition, sure. But you could feasibly train pigeons in bulk to do that. And you'd have a very large capacity of pigeon flight controllers. Like, you could basically have a warehouse full of pigeons and every day train every single one of them. And then you'd have an entire warehouse of biological control systems at the ready.
Just kidding. Electronic guidance came out and then they just shelved the project forever. So yeah, there you have it. That one time that America made pigeon kamikazes. And you thought quack bangs were bad. Speaking of quack bangs, the best way to support the channel is go buy some merch, thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
Excellent first video. And, Johnny and, Matthias? Funny you should mention that. Funny you should mention that, because that's our next video. The anti-tank dogs and explosive rats. That's our next one on our two-shot of Nick tonight. So let's check this one out. We're gonna jump right into it. Let's do it.
We've already talked about America's pigeon-guided bomb from World War II. And America's bat bomb from World War II. So today we're just going to finish off the topic and discuss the 3 remaining animal weapons from World War II and World War II alone, because if we went in detail on every animal weapon throughout the course of human history, we would be here literally all day long. Because trust me when I tell you that people have been trying to kill other people with animals and fire for as long as people have been a thing. I mean, just to gloss over a couple, back in the day, the standard operating procedure for combating war elephants was to take a bunch of pigs, light them on fire, and release them onto the battlefield to simultaneously scare the fuck out of Dumbo and cook dinner at the same time, which honestly is just god-tier level multitasking.
Yeah. It only counts as one.
It still only counts as one.
And then in like 900 AD, you had Olga of Kiev burning down an entire city with flaming pigeons, subsequently killing like 5,000 people, and there was no PETA back then, so she later on became a saint, which is like the most gangster kill streak of all time. Look, I'm not saying it's right, but to achieve both of those things in one lifetime is impressive. And then in the 1200s, you had Genghis Khan, who did pretty much the exact same thing, except he used cats instead. And then here's a German military manual from the 1500s that clearly depicts how to do both of these strategies. I guess the point I'm trying to get at is people have literally been trying to light each other on fire using animals for all of human history, and it gets
Yeah.
progressively worse and more weird the longer time goes on, until it would eventually peak during the Cold War when Britain made a chicken-powered nuclear landmine, but all of that's a story for a different time. Alright, kicking off our animal-based weapons of World War II list in absolutely no particular order that somebody is still gonna tell me I'm wrong about, somehow, we have the United States cat bomb. Except instead of using pigeons that were trained for 6 months to peck at the shape of a ship, the OSS, or Office of Strategic Services, which was basically like the CIA back then, got together, they said training pigeons for 6 months takes too long, we're just gonna try throwing a cat in there to see what happens. And their logic was, cats always land on their feet, and cats hate water. So if we stick one inside of a bomb...
Although, I like water, so... Am I a freak? Am I a freak anime cat girl? I like water. And hi, angry people, welcome.
Yeeted out the back of a plane, and all it can see is a giant ship and the ocean, it will instinctively drive the bomb into the ship because it doesn't want to land in the water and get wet. Now, to be fair, that makes sense if you don't think about it. So the government,
Yes, I did, Atanashi.
Let's give it a shot. What do we have to lose? It's just taxpayer money and stray cats. Who gives a fuck? So that's exactly what they did, and not...
I mean, Andrea, I thought that was very well established already. I'm reasonably sure I well established the freakness. To a degree. To a degree. Says you, Spectra.
Not only did it failed quicker than anybody could have possibly imagined, because as it turns out, not only did cats not instinctively know how to drive a 500-pound bomb, but they also lose consciousness when free-falling. So the US government just drowned a bunch of cats. So yeah, it's definitely warheads on foreheads, not felines on foreheads. Write that down. Moving on. Coming in at number 2, we have...
Wait, I think I yelled over his saying just there, but... Damn you, US government! Stop killing cats!
When free-falling. So the US government just drowned a bunch of cats. So yeah, it's definitely warheads on foreheads, not felines on foreheads. Write that down. Moving on. Coming in at number 2, we have the Soviet Union's anti-tank dogs. It's a pretty straightforward and shitty concept. Basically,
I've heard of this. This one I actually have heard of, where they strapped bombs to dogs. They would send the dogs out, the dogs would get under the tanks, and they would detonate the bombs to explode the tanks. Yes, this one I've heard of. And now, I don't think I've heard why it failed for the dumbest reasons, but I'm sure Nick will educate me.
the Soviets would train a bunch of dogs that there were treats underneath tanks. They would then send the dogs to the front line, put a bomb vest on them with a large lever on the back, in the hopes that the dogs would run, dive underneath German tanks looking for treats. That would throw the lever back, which would set off the bomb vest, blowing up the dog, and hopefully blowing up the German tank. Now, I think we can all agree that that's a really shitty thing to do to the goodest comrade. However, there is a silver lining, because karma would hit back really hard on this one. You see, as it turns out, the Soviets were just training with whatever they had available, and they didn't have very many German tanks laying around, so they were training the dogs using Soviet tanks. What most people don't realize is Soviet tanks ran on diesel, and German tanks ran on gasoline. Not a huge difference in appearance to a human, but
a dog sees with its nose. Oops. Yeah, that's a whoopsie. The Russians just do not have a good track record here, do they? Between their naval fleet and this that we've seen, they don't have a great track record.
But to a dog who uses its sense of smell, it's an enormous difference. So big, in fact, that the dogs pretty much exclusively ran and dove underneath Soviet tanks, blowing up their own comrades. Karma's a bitch. And finishing off our list, we have Britain's exploding rat.
Haha! I wonder if that's where Wanted got if this is where Wanted got the idea. Let's hear the story, because how many of you guys have seen Wanted? Did any of you guys see that movie? With James McAvoy? And Angelina Jolie? And Morgan Freeman? Okay. Those that haven't, Wanted is based on the comic book. Wildly different from the comic book. It is literally just called Wanted. And it's about James McAvoy's character is like an office worker, but he's actually like he's the son of a super assassin that's part of an Assassin's Guild. And the Assassin's Guild takes him in, they train him, and then basically lie to him and betray him. And there's a part in it where one of the people from the Assassin's Guild has like basically he's created these little rat bombs. He straps a digital watch with a small explosive charge on it to a rat, and he tells McAvoy about this. So during the big climax, McAvoy gets literally a garbage truck full of rats, probably about half of which have these little bombs strapped to them, drives up to the assassin's building, this building here, dumps out the rats. The rats, of course, go running into the building all over the place before McAvoy starts his attack, and then, of course, halfway through McAvoy's attack, big kaboom throughout the entire compound. And so it makes me wonder, depending on what Nick is going to say, if that's where they got the inspiration for this. Now, I will say because if I don't, when I post this on YouTube, someone's going to be adding the fuck out of me in the comments section. The movie Wanted is extremely different, like 100% different from the comic book that it's based on. Because number one, Wesley in the comic book, his appearance is based on fuck Eminem. His appearance in the comic, the comic book artist, the creator of it, based Wesley's appearance on Eminem, with the spitting image, and also this is a literal comic book world where the supervillains have won. There are no superheroes, and the supervillains control the planet. They can effectively do what they want, but they have their own hierarchy. They have their own, like, council and stuff. And it's a whole thing. It is completely different from the movie. And it's a good comic book. If you guys like it's incredibly violent, it's filthy, it's raunchy. Check it out. Absolutely check it out if you're interested. Okay, Cryptic, have a good one. And yes, Jesse Christopher, he literally modeled the lead character of Wesley off of Marshall Mathers. He did. Like, it looks like him. He has said so. He has said that he based the character design off Marshall Mathers. But it's a great little, I think it's a 6-issue comic book series if memory serves. It's like 4 or 6 issues. Fun series to watch because it's about the bad guys winning. And what happened, this is after the bad guys have won and what comes after. Check it out. It's a fun read and completely different from the movie. Like 100% different. The movie bears no resemblance to the comic book whatsoever. So, had to make that distinction or I would get added into oblivion in the comments section, I'm sure. It's literally called Wanted. The comic book is also called Wanted. Yeah.
Basically, they were going to take a bunch of dead rats, scoop out their insides, and fill them full of plastic explosives. They would then use a spy network to smuggle in these rats to important strategic locations and just kind of like sprinkle them around near-ish the boiler room in hopes that the boiler room technician would find a dead rat, say, huh, and then throw it into the fire for the boiler, blowing it up, causing a bunch of mayhem. And I know what you're thinking. Why on earth would you use a dead rat? Why not just use a fake piece of coal full of explosives like the Americans did in the Civil War? That makes way more sense. That's exactly what I thought. But then it hit me. And hear me out when I say this. Maybe, just maybe, it's more likely that they would throw a rat into the fire, and here's why. You see, the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death, literally killed off like half of Europe. And the bubonic plague was spread from fleas that were living on rats, meaning that it stands to reason that a significant portion, if not all of the people on the European continent during World War II had a genetic predisposition to seeing a dead rat and being like,
Cast it into the fire!
Now, despite the fact that this was actually a good idea, it never actually panned out the way they planned, because Germany actually intercepted the first batch of exploding rats they ever made, at which point Britain decided to cut their losses on the entire idea because the Germans knew what they were up to. However, the Germans didn't know that, so they spent the rest of World War II inspecting every dead rat they found to see if it was an explosive rat or not. And the best way to do that was to look at the rat's ass because it had a fuse sticking out of it. And funnily enough, this is exactly where the phrase, "I don't give a rat's ass" came from, because after a bunch of German boiler technicians spent months or years looking at dead rats' balloon knots and never finding a fuse ever, they said, fuck it, I'm done looking at rat buttholes, and they just started throwing the rats in the fire without checking, hence the term, "I don't give a rat's ass." To be completely honest, did I just make that shit up? Yeah. Is it true? Fucking maybe, but I doubt it. However, I did have you going for a second. Now, origins of the phrase...
You know what? He did. I will admit it. He did. But that's because Nick is such a great storyteller. Hell yes, he had me going. Absolutely. He did. And, sure, no, it's not. I don't find it weird at all. Yes, I have a bit of a repository for perhaps some obscure knowledge. Yeah, Hoseki, it's our headcanon. It is absolutely our headcanon.
I don't give a rat's ass aside, the British do consider this entire mission an enormous success just due to the sheer amount of man hours that Germany wasted looking for explosive rats that never actually existed.
Matthias,
so,
I've said that so many
task failed
times.
Successfully, I guess. In conclusion, nothing quite stokes the fire of human creativity like trying to kill a motherfucker that you don't like. And creativity is absolutely imperative because, well, you know, it's never a war crime the first time. And on that note, thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang, out.
Hey, what's up, guys? We're up here.
Accidental click. I have to make sure I liked. That was fantastic. That was a great double dose of Nick. And Matthias, I have said many times that I think Nick would be a fucking awesome teacher. And people in chat have told me that he is apparently trying to get a degree in teaching, which that would be outstanding if he did.